to Australia's slow vaccine rollout that is now making news around the world. The BBC's headline said it all. Australia falls 85% short of vaccine delivery goal. Missed it by that much. Somehow, a first world nation with one of the best funded health systems is trailing a number of third world countries in vaccinating its population against coronavirus. Instead of hitting or at least getting close to the target of 4 million vaccines by the end of March, only 670,000 doses were administered. That's just over 2 vaccines administered per 100 of population. Compare that to Israel, where 115 vaccine doses have been administered per 100 of population. Australia currently trails Rwanda, Bangladesh and Bolivia in its vaccine rollout. Countries such as Estonia, Morocco and Barbados have COVID vaccination rates that are 1,000% higher than Australia's rate. It is a national embarrassment. And let's not pretend that Australia's vaccine goals were too ambitious. 4 million was very much an achievable target. But the health bureaucrats who have pretty much run the country in the past 12 months have been far too relaxed about the glacial pace of the rollout and the fact that we began administering the vaccines later than much of the developed world. Health Department Secretary Brendan Murphy said there was no urgency. It's not a race, he said. Well, tell that to the Queensland small business owners who will not survive the latest lockdown and the avalanche of cancelled bookings that followed. Tell that to the workers in the aviation, higher education and tourism industries, wondering when our international borders will reopen. And tell the families who have survived on JobKeeper and are now wondering how they'll pay the bills that it's not a race. Yes, Australia is not riddled with COVID-19, but that's only because we closed our borders to the rest of the world over a year ago. At some point, we'll have to reopen our borders and learn to live with small outbreaks. But that won't happen until we immunise the majority of the adult population. Nick, we've been talking about this for over a month now, about the slow pace of the rollout, about the fact that it started later than it should have. And there is urgency, there is economic urgency, there is people still, Australians still stranded overseas who want to come home. There's Australians who want to go overseas, who've got loved ones they want to see, who've got business affairs to handle. And we can't stay off close to the rest of the world indefinitely.
Rita, we disagree about a lot of things on this program, but one thing I think we do agree on is the lackadaisical pace that this rollout is occurring, and the fact is it has real consequences. In politics, it's usually good to under-promise and over-deliver. But when it comes to this vaccine rollout, the Morrison government has overhyped and under-delivered. 5 weeks into the rollout, just under 700,000 people have received vaccines. The government has fallen 3.3 million doses short of its target to deliver at least 4 million doses by the end of March. Now, the United States vaccinated 100 million people in 8 weeks. In about 3 months, the United Kingdom vaccinated 25 million people, about half of its population. Like Australia, these countries had slow starts. But in the UK, they opened up cathedrals and civic centres and turned them into mass vaccination clinics. Dentists, veterinarians and other health professionals were brought in to help administer doses to as many people as possible. In the US, a combination of mass vaccination centres and the using of local pharmacies has proven successful. But the Australian government says the backbone of this country's rollout will be general practitioners, with the vaccination occurring at your local GP clinic. Now, there are some good arguments in favour of doing it this way. Who better than your local GP to make sure the vaccine is administered in a safe way and any underlying conditions with a patient are identified? But the problem with this method is that it's logistically very complicated. The logistics of getting thousands of doses to thousands of different vaccination centres is extremely complicated, particularly when you're dealing with cold chain logistics and refrigeration in GP clinics. Another cause of delay has been international supply problems. Thanks Italy and others for that. Also, the local CSL plant is taking its time to tool up and ramp up production. But in my view, one thing the Australian government could do to try and speed up this rollout is to go down the mass vaccination centre route. Supplemented, it should be stressed, by GPs and pharmacies. The town halls and civic centres and cathedrals of Australia could be used to get the job done safely and quickly by health professionals. This could be done in a very similar way to how the COVID testing has been occurring across our country as administered by the Australian states. We had up to 70,000 tests per day occurring there on many days. Congesting the waiting rooms of Australia's GP clinics with people waiting to get vaccinated is going to slow us down. And of course, the quicker we can get the population vaccinated, the quicker Australia can return to normal life.